Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good evening. You're with me, Dr. Muhammad Husni Mohd Amin, Fellow at IKIM Center for Science and Environment Studies, or short as KIAS, listening to this program, Great Works of the Muslim World. In season 3, we have discussed Imam al-Ghazali's Nasihat al-Muluk, the Counsel for Kings, originally written for Malik Shah. Its contents and organization follow that of Kimia Sa'ada, with focus on qualities of rulers and ministers, the art of diplomacy, and the role of intelligence in statecraft. Elegant prose literature, which was called adab, often took the form of generalizations illustrated by anecdotes, aphorisms, or verses. Works belonging for the mirror of princess genre, such as Al-Aqd al-Farid, the unique necklace by Ibn Abd Rabbih, Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyah, the rules for governance by Imam al-Mawardi, and Nasihat al-Muluk by Imam al-Ghazali often include anecdotes, aphorisms, and verses to drive home their points. Today we are joined by Muhammad Yusra Ahmad Hulaimi, Research Assistant at IKIM Editorial Unit, to talk about anecdotes in Imam al-Ghazali's Nasihat al-Muluk. Welcome, Yusra, to Great Works of the Muslim World.
Thank you, Dr. Husni, for inviting me. I feel honored to be here today.
Yeah, the honor and pleasure is mine. We invited Yusra because of his experience in translating Nasihatul Muluk into Malay language. What is it called again, Yusra?
So in Arabic, it is called Atibul Masbuk fi Nasihatil Muluk, and I translated it into Malay as Nasihat buat pemerintah. But as we will see, the word muluk actually does not only refer to rulers and kings or prime ministers. It can also refer to anyone who is given the authority to manage subjects under them, be them parents, teachers, CEOs, and so on and so forth.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. So we're going to go with our first question for you, Yusra, since we're going to talk about anecdotes. So what are anecdotes and why are they important?
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you again, Dr. Husni, for inviting me here today, and thank you, IKIM, for organizing this session. So the question is, what is anecdote and why is it important? Anecdotes are simply short stories. They serve to illustrate points, contextualize abstract concepts, usually moral concepts such as values and virtues. And when we say values and virtues, we can imagine concepts such as justice, courage, moderation, compassion, chastity, integrity, and more, and so on and so forth. So why is it important? First, we have to know about our own nature, the human nature. We humans are created with a dual nature. We have souls that originate from the spiritual world, but we also live in this physical world. So a part of us is abstract, so to speak. Yet another part of us is concrete. We are spiritual beings, but we live in the physical world. Therefore, even though we can understand abstract moral concepts such as virtues, but we need also concrete examples to help us act it out, to execute it in different daily contexts and to implement it. According to a contemporary moral philosopher, Alasdair MacIntyre, a Scottish moral philosopher, he said that today we have a problem of not being able to discuss ethics and morality in a meaningful way, because our discussions of ethics and morality today are so abstract that we don't have any grasp on the reality of the situation, on how to implement moral concepts to real situations. For example, when we talk about tolerance, different groups always have different definitions. So tolerance is a virtue. So what is the definition? So it's different from one group to another. So questions like, to whom do we owe tolerance? To what extent should tolerance be offered, etc. So these questions can be problematic to us if we don't have examples of how people in the past have practiced tolerance. So for us now, moral values and virtues are just abstract concepts. We do not know how to implement moral virtues in different specific contexts. And why does this happen? Because we don't have examples, just like I said, that show us how to implement these virtues. And this uh, problem has led us to other two problems. One is existential crisis, where we don't know the purpose of our life. Concepts such as happiness, a meaningful life, and purpose have become too abstract to mean anything. So we go about every day with anxiety, not knowing why, the big why of our life. And the second problem is generational gap, when an existential crisis has taken hold of a generation because one generation does not accept the meaning of life as offered by the previous generation. So that generation sets out to find its own meaning, only then to fail and to then cause the same problem to the next generation, and so on and so on and so forth. And that is why the Quran emphasizes the role of the Prophet as an excellent example, uswatun hasanah. And that is why also one of the foremost contemporary Muslim thinkers of our time, Professor Said Muhammad Nakib Alatas, also emphasizes the role of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the best example for mankind to safeguard us from the problem of existential crisis and generational gaps. So our best example, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through his saying,
Sallallahu.
through his actions, and through his silent acknowledgements, all of these are recorded in ahadith, and it came to us in the form of anecdotes, how the Prophet acted out his life. And um, uh, so these anecdotes have offered us concrete examples of how to lead a meaningful life, a virtuous life, and a happy life. And then, as different roles and offices become more complex, as kings, ministers, directors, parents, teachers, older brothers, older sisters, our scholars have written about how to implement different virtues in different roles, and justice, how kings can execute justice, how parents can execute justice, and so on and so forth. So these works uh, came to evolve into a genre of its own, known as works of advice, nasiha, or exhortations, wasiyah, or admonition. Wow. So these, to put it simply, these are the roles and the importance of anecdotes. How simple tools of lessons can generate big benefits, and in the absence of which can cause, like we said earlier, grave problems for us today. Wallahu alam.
Yeah, I suppose that's why I think when you say uh, about the how these virtues they have become so abstract that people cannot or people could not relate to them. Therefore, they couldn't do them. They couldn't manifest them in their own selves, in their
Yes,
acts, in their behaviors. I suppose
yes,
that's why in the Quran there are many stories, uh,
yes, exactly.
stories which are built upon the actions and behaviors of human beings.
Yes,
Uh, Even there is a surah in the Quran named Al-Qasas, meaning stories, because
yeah,
that's how people or human beings generally learn from. And I'm
mm-hmm.
attracted to this one posting by a scholar by the name of Colin Turner, who talks about how he disagrees with the notion of infallible with regards to prophets, in the sense that uh, they are not people who are incapable of committing sins. They are as human beings, they are impeccable, but with regards to infallibility, they are people who are just as capable as you and me, but they do not do sins. They do not commit sins or grave mistakes. That is the ismah or protection that God gives them. For otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to send prophets or messengers who are incapable as in not having the capability to commit sins, to have them teach mankind on how to behave or how to act properly, because they will become, as you said, Yusra, abstract virtues which people cannot relate, because mistakes are the purview or something that is done by human beings.
Yes.
Even in the prophet says, "Kullu bani Adam khata'un wa khairu khata'in tawwabun." What do you think of that?
Yeah, that is the wisdom, I guess, of prophets being sent among mankind.
Yeah.
Because if God were to send angels, the angels were too abstract for us, and because the angels don't live like us, they don't have problems like us, so they are not able to teach us how to solve our problems, because their virtues, the angels also have virtues, but their virtues are intellectual virtues only, while we here we have practical virtues, things like I said just now, concepts like generosity, moderation, and so forth. These virtues can only be practiced by humans, not angels. Angels don't require these virtues. So,
All right.
wallahu alam.
Okay. So thanks for the elaboration, and now back to our focus on the topic today. So, what could you tell us about the anecdotes that we might find in Nasihat al-Muluk, and what are the lessons that we can derive from them?
All right. Thank you again for the question. So, today we have one work, Nasihatul Muluk, Counsels for Kings. And I have translated this work into the Malay language, and it has been published some years ago, and it can be bought from the BBO bookshop. So this work is a work focusing primarily on the roles of a ruler of a state. But as I said in the introduction, it can also be contextualized to different roles of smaller leadership, from company to family leadership, and even of one's own self. Because in another work, al-Ghazali has said that the relationship of the qalb, which is in us, to our own body is like a king to a city. So our body is a city, and the heart is the king. So we can contextualize the Kitab Nasihatul Muluk even to our own individual selves. So one virtue that I find very interesting in Nasihatul Muluk is called al-Himmah. Al-Himmah in Arabic, but in English or in Malay, I don't know exactly how to translate it, because there are some multiple definitions to it. Definitions such as self-respect, pride, good pride, not the bad pride, self-knowledge, courage, diligence, prudence, and so on and so forth. So again, these definitions are abstract, okay? And al-himmah is also an abstract concept of virtue. So how do we understand? By anecdotes. And what are some of the anecdotes that we can share? firstly, I would like to share this anecdote. So once Harun al-Rashid, a caliph, the caliph, was riding his horse in a parade when one of his royal bodyguards fell off his horse. And then Harun al-Rashid declared that the bodyguard should be compensated with 500 dirham. But his advisor, the royal advisor of Harun al-Rashid, gave a signal to him with his eyes. And then that signal mean that amount was too small and too self-insulting for a caliph to utter. So 500 dirham, if compared to the revenues or the salary of the caliph, is too small. He should have given more. So for such a small amount, it implies that the caliph was miserly, or that his kingdom was not doing well economically, or that he was underestimating the value of his subject, that bodyguard. So we can see here that there are many virtues or sub-virtues contained in the virtue of himmah. First is the opposition to miserly, which is generosity. And then that the notion that his kingdom was not doing well economically implies that he is a bad administrator, a bad ruler. So a bad ruler is not a wise ruler. So himmah can also mean wisdom, or that he was underestimating the value of his subject. So we can see there maybe the vice contained in that implication is arrogance. So we can say the opposite of arrogance is humility. So humility also can be a sub-virtue of himmah. So we can see himmah contains many things. So to know what are the lessons that we can get from this anecdote. So firstly, to know what is the right amount for compensation requires the caliph to know himself, to know his position, to know his subject, the value of his subject, the situation, and many other aspects to be considered. And secondly, it is necessary for him to have the courage to pronounce the right decision. So we can see many virtues are contained within a single umbrella virtue, which is himmah. And then I would like to also share another anecdote. It goes like this. Once, a minister by the name Amir Umarah bin Hamzah was in a meeting in the council chamber with the caliph, another caliph, Khalifah al-Mansur, and in the presence of all the other ministers. And that day, that meeting was allocated specifically for complaints and grievances. So subjects came from all around the kingdom to file their complaints. Then came a man claiming that Amir Umarah had wronged him. And when asked, he claimed that Amir Umarah had misappropriated his power and confiscated his land. And then the caliph asked Amir Umarah to rise and explain himself. And this was his answer, Amir Umarah's answer. He said, I am not his adversary. If the estate is one of his, then I have no quarrel with him, and I will fulfill his rights. But if it is one of mine, I shall present it to him. I shall give it to him. I shall give it to him as a gift. I will not rise from my place because the caliph has honored me and placed me here. I shall not barter my rank and position for a mere estate. So if it is up to us now, we see a land is something very precious, and we would not give anything away as a replacement for this opportunity. We would grab any opportunity to get this land for us. So, but it is different to Amir Umarah. So what are the lessons that we can get from here? Firstly, it is not proper for a person vested with authority and power to quarrel with ordinary people beneath him, people less powerful or more powerless than him, for fear of misusing one's power. because it is dangerously easy to inflict injustice to powerless people, even unknowingly. So when we have ranks higher than other people, we must always bear in mind not to wrong other people even unconsciously. So this here reflects prudence, self-knowledge, knowledge of others as virtues part of himma. The second lesson is dignity exhorts one to restrain from quarreling with people beneath his rank, for not only it undermines his own rank, but also insults the one with whom he quarrels. Of course, when people beneath us quarrel with us, um, of course, their rank is lower than us. But when we reciprocate by quarreling with them, it shows that we somehow denigrate that person even lower than he already is. So again, there are multiple virtues that can be gained from here as part of the umbrella virtue, which is called al-himmah. So how do we define al-himmah? We cannot know how to define it with jami' and mani' definition, with ta'rif, had, but with anecdotes, we can understand how is it applied in daily life. So you can see there how anecdotes help us to understand abstract virtue concepts of virtue. Wallahu alam.
Right. Thank you for that, Yusra. I think it is interesting. These are very interesting anecdotes, and we can see how even Imam Ghazali incorporates such anecdotes into his works. Following the
Mhm.
model that has been set by the Quran to deliver home his points. In this case, himmah, which can be many things.
Mm.
You've enlightened me on this, because previously I thought that it can be translated into fervor, but then again it would be the wrong term to use, because fervor means really passionate feeling, or feeling of
Mhm.
intensity. But in this case, it means something of the positive side, eagerness in performing religious duties, I suppose. And
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
I'm also attracted with what you said earlier, that at the second lessons, that it is not proper for a person of higher authority to get into quarrel with the ordinary people. I'm reminded in my own research of Ali ibn Abu Bakr al-Harawi in his military treatise. Well, he also used anecdotes, but maybe perhaps this is a discussion fitting for another time. But I should like to cite also a few examples here, when he said that it is not for the ruler to pick a fight with his subordinates, because
Mm.
it says that uh, it is uh, uh, it is a defect for a person to pursue another, yet it is a something of a superiority to be pursued by another. uh,
Mhm.
so in that respect, so I think also one other relation uh, he used, Ali al-Harawi, he used majas, or metaphor, talking about how bahima, or a predatory animal, or a lion, when a hare or a rabbit passes in front of him, he shuts both of his eyes, because it can be said, so that it can be said that it is putting the rabbit in its proper place, which is a lower place than the lion, or it can
mm,
also be said to be a mercy upon the rabbit, because the lion, he goes for larger prey, a gazelle or a buffalo, something
mm.
bigger than a mere hare, which is only fitting for smaller
Fox.
predators such as a fox or a wolf, not befitting something that is not befitting for the lion, which is king among animals. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think we only have a few minutes left. Maybe you would like to give a conclusion. Why do you think uh, such a thing is relevant to us today in modern life?
Yeah. Basically, I would like to point back to the first question that you asked me about the importance of anecdotes. Um, Today, in our entertainment culture, we are provided with materials that do not help us to clear our moral ambiguities that we are facing. Instead, what we are provided with figures with their own moral dilemmas. For example, when we watch Marvel heroes movies, all the heroes they hold on to principles, virtues, we can call it, such as freedom. For example, Captain America holds on to freedom, and he holds on to freedom so dearly, such that it became a problem to him when other necessities contradict with freedom. And Iron Man, for example, holds on to security, but then when freedom contradicts security, he doesn't know what to do. So instead of being fed with uh, figures with their own confusions as examples for us, we should refer to figures who have solved their moral dilemmas. Figures such as the prophets, figures such as um, um, if we are to take examples from Alasdair MacIntyre, he said figures in the poems of Homer, heroic figures who have problems but have solved their problems with the proper execution of virtues. So we should be um, presented with these figures instead of heroes who are as flawed as us. And we don't need to be more confused. We need clarity, we need clarification, enlightenment. So that is what I think, how virtues, anecdotes should and can be properly implemented in today's entertainment. Wallahu alam.
Yeah, I suppose that's why that explains a lot why is the offerings by Hollywoods. I like when you said the examples of Marvel superheroes, because these figures they come from imagination. They are also abstract, and while some of them might exhibit certain virtues, it becomes difficult for even young small kids or young adults to properly relate to them, because uh,
Mm,
you know uh, how many billionaire philanthropists that out there could invest in lots of money into building armors, or to help provide securities around the world,
yeah.
and how many people have we known has been injected by the super soldier serum to make them strong,
Serum.
yet strong, yet they have the moral character to do what's right when things go legally wrong. But I suppose that explains why Muslims, they have their own tradition. We have the tabaqat, they have the sirah.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and then earlier this season, we had an episode on Maghazi, to talk about the expeditions of the prophets, and people can learn, the how much human being the Holy Prophet was, and how
Mm-hmm.
he is readily emulatable. His virtues we can practice in our daily lives. So also his companions and the tabi'in, and also, which I believe that is the theme mainly that we try to bring into the great works of the Muslim world, to show that the Muslims, uh, many of them, many of the scholars, they were also polymath. They come from various backgrounds, like Imam Abu Hanifa, who used to be a merchant, yet
Mm-hmm.
he writes books on creedal matters. We have people like even Usama ibn Munkith at 90 years old. He sat down and began compiling his Kitab al-I'tibar, and for after having decades of career fighting the Crusaders, during the Crusades. But I suppose this demonstrates the many uses of anecdotes, and they are as real as they can be. But
Mm-hmm.
I thank you, Yusra, for
Yes,
having
thank you
graced
also.
our program, and we sure hope to see you again sometime.
Inshallah, inshallah. I hope there will be future opportunities also.
All right, good. For our viewers and listeners, that was Muhammad Yusra Ahmad Hulaimi, Research Assistant, IKIM Editorial Unit, talking about anecdotes in Imam Ghazali's Nasihatul Muluk. So until next time, wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.